brothers and sisters, then I'll tell you a story, a real story. This is not a joke. It's a real story. I have a retired associate. His name is Kim Senang Ho. When he was young in the Changchong area, his wife died and he buried her. After 50 days, he went to the tomb with his children in Korea. We have high tombs, not flat tombs. It had rained and the tomb had cracked, and all the children were clawing at the tomb, crying, "Daddy, Daddy, Mama is breathing. Quickly, oh, open the tomb." But he said, no, it had rained. This was a new tomb, so it may have cracked. But Mama was not alive. The children were all crying, so he took them home and gave them some money to go out and buy cookies. He sat down, feeling very depressed. His heart was broken, and he was crying and reading the Bible. Suddenly, he felt someone come behind him and thrust a big sword through his heart, and he fell. He had a massive heart attack and died. I was in the office when a telegram came. In those days, we did not have fax or internet. So a telegram came saying Kim Sanang Ho had died and asking me to organize the funeral party to bury him. A doctor had already issued a death certificate for a massive heart attack, and it was already 3 days later. So I personally organized the funeral committee, appointed members, gave them some money, and sent them to bury him. When they arrived, he was there, so they washed him. Because in Korea, up until that time, we didn't have mortuaries. They washed and clothed him. And just before they put him in the casket, they were singing the last song. Suddenly, Kim Sanang Ho rose up, and all the ministers ran out of the house. They were so frightened. He was sitting by his casket and waving them to come in. Each of them said, "You go first. You go first." They were so scared. They thought they were seeing a ghost. They made a scramble and came back and touched him, and he was alive. He really was alive. Then he was very angry, saying, "I am not a dead person. Why are you trying to bury me? You are kidding." They said, "You are really dead. The doctor issued a death certificate. You died of a massive heart attack." Then he told me this story. Since I am his boss, he tells me in great detail. To others, he would not tell the story so detailed. He said that when he felt as if the big sword was thrust through his heart, he fell, and as he was falling down, he saw 3 stars falling from the sky. He was watching the stars, and as they came near, there were 3 angels. The angels came and said, "Let's go home." Each angel took his side, and one angel was leading the way. While he was leaving, he looked around, and then there was Kim Sanang Ho lying down. He said, "Hey, Mr. Angel, look at that. I am there." The angel said, "That is your husk. You have been living there for a long time, but you are out of the husk. Forget about that. Let's go." He said they were coming from the North Pole. He said that there's Earth, and then from the North Pole, there was a super highway toward heaven, and angels were there. He came to the North Pole, and there was a super highway they were ascending, and it was moving like lightning, and many people were riding that escalator going to heaven. While he was going to heaven, he saw many big stars. From the North Pole he was going on, and he asked the angel how long it takes, as it is quite a distance. Does it take 1 day from Earth to heaven? Finally, he arrived in a vast universe, so bright and so glorious and so beautiful. Finally, he came to the heavenly city, the New Jerusalem, and the door was open, and Jesus was standing there with a host of angels, and the complete Spirit were there welcoming him with hallelujahs. He was walking in, and then he saw David, and David came and shook hands with him. He saw Stephen, and Stephen was there. He said, "Stephen, weren't you in great pain when they stoned you?" And Stephen said, No, Jesus was watching me, and I was so full of joy that I didn't feel any pain at all. Then there was a river flowing from the throne, a tremendous big river, and so many trees on the side of the rivers with fruit all over the places. And under them were beautiful benches all over, and angels and people were sitting there, reaching out to take the fruit and eat it. Instantly, the fruit would turn into fragrance coming out of the pores of the body. So the air was full of fragrance and beautiful music. Then Jesus said, "Let's go and worship the Father." They came to a big auditorium. He said an endlessly big auditorium, and millions and millions and millions of people and angels were there worshiping God like waves of the sea, bowing down worshiping, and the music and peace and joy touched the heavenly and was unspeakable. He joined them, bowed down and was rejoicing, and God was like a big mountainous light. He said he could not see his image because he was such a big image of light. Then Jesus said, "You can't stand here too long. You must go and see many places." He said, "Well, my wife died 50 days ahead, so may I see her?" Jesus said, "As a matter of fact, you are here because of the request of your wife." So Jesus took him to a glorious mansion, and the door was open, and his wife was walking out with beautiful clothes and an angel. He said, "Pastor, she was beautiful." And I laughed because while he was having a church, I would go down to hold meetings for him. And in those days, there were no hotels. I was living in a parsonage, and she would always bring food. And I tell you, she was a very ugly woman. Whenever I looked at her, I felt sorry for him. So I said, "Pastor Kim, you are really kidding." He said, "Pastor, no, she was like Jesus Christ. Her old image was completely disappeared. She was renewed, and she looked like Jesus. She was so beautiful and pretty." And he said, when he reached out his hand to shake hers, she said, "No, you still belong to the earth, and you can't shake hands with me." But she said, "I asked Jesus to bring you temporarily because the children were so sorrowful. Jesus heard my merciful prayer." She said, "When you go down to earth, tell the children that their mother is more alive here than on earth, and their mother is very happy here. It is glorious. So when you go down, tell them, and also those boys are all going to become ministers, so tell them to be faithful to Jesus Christ, preach the gospel, and let them come to heaven and meet together." While he was chatting, he noticed especially the back part of her skull was shining like a diamond. Then he remembered when in the country on Sunday, without going to work in the rice paddy, he and his wife adorned themselves to go to church. And after service, they were coming back home. Their father-in-law, his father, was so angry that he took a rock and threw it. And that rock hit her skull, and her skull was broken and bled. He said when he saw her in heaven, that place was shining like a diamond. When you receive persecution, all of those things are going to be paid off. Then Jesus said, "You can't stand here too long. You have so many things to see." He said as far as he reached, there were mansions after mansions. It was a real mansion. He said, "It's not just a mansion which we say in the world." It was so fantastic. He said, "Sir, I want to see my own home." Jesus said, "Okay, you come." And he was escorting him, and he was most amazed because one old woman was coming to his church and she was nobody, nothing, but she was always cleaning the church and burning the oven and doing all those dirty chores, and no one paid any attention, but she died. And when he was coming, he saw her home, and it was a magnificent, beautiful home. A little further there was an elder who was very proud, a swashbuckling guy, but his house was smaller. Then when he came to his own house, there was no roof, and he felt like crying. He said, "Jesus, my home has no roof." Jesus said, "Don't worry, your good work is costly. Coming up to heaven with those materials, we are completing your house. So you go down to earth and you do the work for the Lord, and good work will come up as material and will complete your roof. Then we will call you, then you'll come." Then he suddenly said, "You must go back quickly. Your friends are going to bury you. Then you will have no place to go in." And he called those 3 angels to hurry him down to earth because his friends were going to bury him. So they took him and rushed to the gate, and someone was calling behind him, "Hey, wait a minute, wait a minute." When he looked, it was Abraham, and he said, "Pastor, I always thought Abraham was a very old person, but he was very young, Abraham as young as Jesus Christ." And he came and said, "You are going back to earth. Tell the world, tell the people that Christ is coming back very soon, much sooner than you think, and let them get ready because Christ is coming very soon." Then when he came to the gate, the angel took him, and they took the same escalator from the northern part of the sky to the North Pole. Then when he was coming home, he could see his room right through the roof, and there he saw his casket. His friends were ready to put him in the casket, and there was his corpse. When he stood at the feet of his corpse, the angel said, "Dive in." They pushed him, he dived in, and he came alive. This is a true story because I have seen it with my own eyes, and he has worked as my associate in my church. Now he is still alive, and he is working in prayer. If you ever come to South Korea, if you like to talk with him, I'll let you meet him. And there's heaven to gain, hell to avoid. Jesus Christ finished death and hell, and he brings the eternal kingdom of God to us. He lived on for many years after that, a changed man with a profound purpose. He told everyone who would listen about what he had seen, not as a mere story, but as an urgent testimony. He said the memory of heaven's light never faded, nor did the sound of the worship or the peace that was so deep it felt like the very air was made of joy. He worked tirelessly with a new understanding that every act of service, every word of kindness was another piece of material, another stone or jewel being sent ahead to complete his home in that glorious city. The message Abraham gave him, that Christ is coming back very soon, became the cornerstone of his ministry. He was no longer just a pastor going through the motions. He was a messenger with a delivery from the other side, a man who had seen the destination and was now helping others prepare for the journey. He said the greatest sorrow was not the persecution or hardship on earth, but the thought of anyone missing the overwhelming love and majesty he witnessed. So he preached with a fire that could only have been lit in that heavenly realm, telling all of us that this life is but a brief moment, a preparation for a reality far more real and breathtaking than we can possibly imagine. And he reminded us that our work here is not in vain, for it is building our eternal home there. Of course, The impact of his experience rippled out far beyond his own life, shaping the faith of our entire congregation and everyone who heard his testimony. He carried a tangible sense of urgency, a holy impatience with the trivial concerns of this world. You could see it in his eyes. They held a light that seemed to remember the glory he had been shown. He was no longer afraid of death. For him, it was simply the moment the roof would be finished, the final summons to go home. His prayers changed, becoming less about earthly needs and more about aligning our hearts with the worship he had witnessed in that great auditorium. He would often say that the greatest deception is to live as if this world is the only reality, when in truth we are all just temporary residents, and our true citizenship is in that New Jerusalem. His story was a constant living reminder that the promises in the Bible are not merely poetic metaphors, but concrete and breathtaking realities. It solidified our hope and made the gospel message vibrantly alive. It taught us that every act of faithfulness, no matter how small or unseen, is eternally significant, and that our ultimate reunion with Christ will be more glorious and more real than anything we have ever known. And so the undeniable truth of his journey stands as a final witness. This is the conclusion of the matter. Heaven and hell are real. Our lives here are a fleeting preparation, and the return of Christ is imminent. The account of my associate is not merely a story to be pondered, but a divine warning and a glorious invitation. It confirms that Jesus Christ has conquered death and hell, and he offers everyone an eternal home in that kingdom of indescribable light and joy. The choice is set before us. We have seen the evidence through one who has been there and returned. Let us therefore live with purpose, building with the costly materials of faith and good works, so that when we are called, we will be ready to enter a mansion with a completed roof into the everlasting presence of God.